Do you remember the first time you heard metal music?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so the 80s were the golden age for for metal music. And so when I was a kid, all my friends were listening to metal, like Iron Maiden, AC/DC, all the classics were exploding. Europe, all those bands, Scorpions. So I don't remember which one was the real. Probably one of the very first one I heard was Kiss, I think. Kiss was very popular. There was a friend of mine in a little older than me that he was super fanatic of Kiss. So Kiss was one of the first. Then my dad, I remember he bought me a cassette of Animalize from Kiss. So I think Kiss was one of the first. I remember really clearly the I Was Made for Loving You in the radio stations, like pumping up. And then I would say Kiss was the first encounter, but then probably AC/DC was the real first passion I had for metal music because my cousin gave me a vinyl of Let There Be Rock from AC/DC. So I think that was the real vinyl I own. And the first metal t-shirt was like AC/DC. So I think that was the starting point.
When did you decide that you want to also play metal and be a musician?
Not back then. I mean, back then I had a guitar for a gift, classic guitar, but I'd never thought about seriously playing music. And I think it's something that came afterwards when me and Mark, our bass player, we were skateboarding together. So I think when we couldn't skate, we were staying home and listening to a lot of metal music and a lot of hardcore punk music as well and watching skate videos and cassettes of like bands like Pantera home videos or Red Hot Chili Peppers or a lot of the Anthrax, Iron Maiden. And so we got more and more into the music growing up and we started going to rehearse just for fun, in between skateboarding, go to with friends, only some other friends that were skating with us, start to play what probably was some kind of punk music because we weren't really good musician. None of us studied to play. So, and then the more we developed, the more we grow older, the more we went into the passion for music and metal, and then it became a band. But it was nothing we dream all our life to be musicians, or none of us, even Christina, none of us really ever thought we could have been professional musician. It's just something that developed from passion.
Who were your major inspirations once you started to do music more seriously?
I mean, we were listening to a lot of of course, we knew all the classics, all the Megadeth, the Metallica, the Slayer, the Pantera. We were coming also from the hardcore punk background of bands like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks, Bad Religion, and then also crossing over to Fate No More and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Primus and all that stuff. But I would say that when we really decide to take a turn on certain sounds, like more doomy, gothic, more, it was mostly bands like Paradise Lost and Type O Negative that really influenced us. Tiamat, they really pushed us towards the more dark side of metal with more without being super fast or super heavy all the time. So, but we always listened to a lot of different, even the early Korn, like a lot of early Slipknot, and so we've been mixing up a lot of influences, but definitely Paradise Lost and Type O Negative were the bands that drove us more towards the direction we took when we did our demo. There was also still mixing a little bit of death metal as well because we were also listening to a lot of the 90s death metal like Entombed, Obituary, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Napalm Death, all that stuff, Carcass and
Who were the vocalists that you personally took most from?
in the beginning, I think Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost was a big influence for me, and because I always like James Hetfield as well as a vocalist, although he's not the most famous vocalist. He's a great musician, guitar player, songwriter, singer, but he's not the typical singer you would take as an example of technique or. But I always liked his tone and the way he was doing vocal lines. And Nick Holmes at the time when on the Icon record, Draconian Times. He was sort of a heavier James Hetfield, more growl, almost more distorted James Hetfield. And I like that. direction and it fits my voice well. As an idol, I always like Mike Patton from Fade No More because he was capable of doing all the clean and the distorted and the high and the lows, you know. So he was quite a complete singer, but obviously it's not easy to have that kind of talent, you know. So I never felt I could do something in that direction, you know. So for me, it was more the Paradise Lost and that kind of more dirty-ish James Hetfield kind of vibe.
How did you develop your voice? Was it easy in the beginning or did you find it difficult?
No, it wasn't easy because we were coming more from a hardcore punk background where, you know, you mostly scream. It's more important about the intensity and the words than not the technique so much, you know. So I took some little vocal lessons here and there for the basic technique, but which is I think it's useful for any kind of singing you're gonna do because you still need the breathing technique, you still need the holding the notes and pushing the long breath. So the basic technique is the same any kind of vocals you do. Then of course there are more specific techniques if you want to be more distorted or more clean, more operatic. That it's a different story again. But in general, I found very useful the basic techniques of breathing with your diaphragm and holding with the abs, holding the nose, and don't put any stress in your throat too much, you know. But obviously, it's something that you also learn by practicing. You know, the more you sing, the more you find out what you're good at and especially when you work in the studio, you realize if you can do something or if you can't do something. You know.
Do you remember your first tour? How was it?
We straight open up for Moonspell, a Portuguese band that was from the same label, Century Media. We had only an EP back then of 5 songs, but it wasn't released yet. It was coming out like next month. So we were mostly doing a promotional tour, and we never toured before. So our first experience was on the road on a tour bus, opening for a great band, and it was not easy because obviously we were very unexperienced. We only had some local gigs before that, and we never played. So we were very shy, and we made all the possible mistake you make when you don't know anything about it. It was a lot of fun though, because the Moonspell guys were great people, and they treat us really well. But it wasn't easy because at halfway through the tour, when we played the show in Italy, we split the band in two. With only 3 of us remain in the band, basically me, Christina, and Marco, which we're still in the band actually. And so we had to kind of follow the tour, only doing promo and interviews, and then find some other musician that could play with us. And we had the help of some other musician that learned the parts very quickly. And in 2 or 3 shows, we've been able to start again and complete the tour.
How was the local metal scene in Italy then when you started versus has it developed now to something bigger?
I mean, it was underground, very underground at the time. There were starting to be some bands that were signing international deals, like Rhapsody, which is a power metal, symphonic metal kind of band. Labyrinth, which was also more proggy, powerish kind of band. Power metal was very big in Italy at the time. Bands like Stratovarius were really big, Angra. So we were very different than anything that was popular in that moment in our country. But metal has always been quite underground, especially for local bands. You know, there's a scene, definitely. There's also a lot of attention for the big bands, like if Iron Maiden or Rammstein or any big bands come, obviously it's sold out and a lot of people. But for Italian local band, there wasn't much history of bands that created a legacy, that made some international success, like it happened back then in Germany, for example, or in Scandinavia. You know, you had bands in Germany like Halloween or Scorpions or Creator. You know, they were already have a following from the 80s and became big international bands as well. Also later there was Rammstein and 108 and many other Halloween and many other bands. You know, in Italy we never had that. We never had that one band that made it internationally and opened the doors and bring some other band. So we were kind of the first one together, probably with Rhapsody, to do that. You know, so it was all very unknown. And nowadays there's more bands I think that are higher quality,
Mm.
but overall metal, it's still quite underground. We're the only band that reach medias that are not strictly metal medias, you know, on TV or magazine or newspapers even websites that are not strictly metal. You know, we are the only band that have been on the cover of Rolling Stone or something that is not strictly rock metal magazine, you know. So it's still quite underground, but there's a scene. You can play a lot of shows in Italy if you're a local band. But obviously, in the media level, there's not much attention from the mainstream media. It's mostly underground or specialized media.
Hmm. And when you started to make music and write lyrics, was it clear to you from the start that you want to make music in English and not in Italian?
Yes, because in Italian we had some rock bands that were using Italian lyrics and worked pretty well, but never metal bands. There was maybe one that tried, but it was never the same. And we only listened, especially back then, we didn't really listen to a lot of Italian music because we didn't really like it. And besides some artists, obviously, but most of it wasn't too good for us, and so we immediately started with the English. We never even think about doing it in Italian. Then later in our career, we have used a little bit of Italian here and there, but was never a prominent thing because Italy is not really a market for metal that much. You know, I mean, you can always try, obviously, but I think more if you do more like punk slash hardcore music, then maybe something more connected to the social texture of the society, then maybe Italian works well because there's a lot of kids that are also interested in that. But for strictly metal, especially our kind of metal, which is more about the inner sphere of the person, it's hard to do it in Italian.
When you started to do tours and recordings, how much did you practice then singing technique and stuff like this?
Nothing special. Like normally, maybe starting to take some vocal lessons because when you tour, you understand how easy you lose your voice, how easy you not hear really well when you're on stage. So you realize that it's not so easy as singing at home. You know, when you sing at home or in the practice room is one thing, but when you go out there and you have other loud instrument on stage and monitors maybe are not great or the monitor guy is not great. So it's a very different game to play, you know. So you understand that you need to be really prepared. So after that, we started practicing more and warming up and taking advices. You know, nowadays it's a bit easier because you can go on YouTube and see a lot of videos on technique, on saving your voice, on advice from great musicians. Back then, when we started, there was nothing. You know, there was no internet, there was nothing. So everything you knew is because somebody told you that you met on the road. Like we had a recipe for a tea that was made by Ronnie James Dio, and we had a tour manager in America that she was also working with Ronnie James Dio. So it's a recipe that she had from Ronnie James Dio, and we copy that recipe. But so it's always about trying to get pieces of information here and there. And nowadays, it's a lot faster and a lot easier to get all this information. You know.
Did you lose your voice in the beginning often, or
A little bit, yeah. Never completely, but it was hard to sing every night because when you don't know, you just scream as loud as you can, and then you go out and drink some beers and talk to people, and that really kills your voice, you know. It's really the most important thing for a singer is to sleep and be well rested. And if you don't have that, then it's really hard because it's a physical thing, so you really need to be rested. So in the beginning, we were doing all the stupid things like drinking. But now, for example, when we drink before a day off after the show. So we have one day to recover, and we don't drink as much as we used to do anyway. But even if we have a couple of beers, it's always on the day off, and we avoid to go out after the show because if you go out, you start talking with people. Maybe there's loud music, so you tend to scream and then you lose your voice already before you go to bed, and the next day you're completely zero. So we had to learn to preserve the voice, you know, because it's really sometimes it's just a bit stressful because you would like to party like everyone else, you would like to hang out, to go to the bar, to meet people. But then if you do that, you know you're gonna be chances are that you're not gonna have any voice the next day. So you try to preserve. And I think also the more you do it, the more you do tour, the more you learn about your voice, you know, the more you about control, and don't over push, don't, you know, try to use technique to, if you're suffering, then try to use technique to make for the lack of voice that you have, you know.
Did you or do you still have some maybe some food or drink besides alcohol that you avoid before the show to preserve your voice?
We tend to eat at least 3 hours before the show because with 3 hours you can eat, so you can, there's obviously I'm not gonna eat like at the wedding party, but we try to save the voice, but it's also important to eat a lot earlier so you have time to digest and don't go on stage burping the food, or digesting the food. So we try to do that. We try to There's not so many things we avoid, to be fair. I mean, some things, like some people give coffee, sometimes it could be a little bit acid, so it can bring some acidity, but we still drink it, but maybe we stop earlier in the day so we don't have to drink it right before. Or we avoid stuff that is too much with gas, with bubbles, because it also makes you burp as well. So, but nothing crazy, a little bit, but nothing crazy. Just try to be sensible and reasonable. If you want to, we don't smoke. Like I never smoked. Christina never smoked as well. So that's already something good that you don't have to worry about. And as I say, we just drink alcohol when there's a day off, or if I can have a beer, no problem. But if we want to have 2 or 3 beers, then it's gonna be the day before the day off, so you have one day to relax and get rid of the headache and all the problems on the voice.
Do you still drink that Ronnie James Dio tea to this day?
Yes, yes, yes. If you want, I can give you the recipe. I mean, it's not complicated
Sure,
actually.
for sure, give
It's
it.
of course it's a tea basically, so it's hot water. You put some honey in it. You put ginger roots. You slice the ginger roots and squeeze it inside. A little bit of lemon, very little. As a tea, we use a tea called throat coat that you can find in America very easily. I don't know about the rest of Europe. Maybe in the UK, I'm sure you can find it. Not sure the rest of Europe, but it's like an herbal tea which is made on purpose to relax the throat.
Mhm.
And you just make it as a normal tea. Don't put too much honey because it's gonna also be heavy for your stomach before you sing. When you sing, the honey is very heavy. You can come back. So you drink it a lot before the show as well. And then we use also some pastilles, which are called vocal zone,
Okay.
which basically to just keep your throat clear from bacteria and stuff like that. So it's you can find it in the pharmacy very often, and that's it basically. And then yeah, we don't smoke, exercise a little bit, and try to. But most important thing is the sleep. Sleeping is the most important thing. When you are well rested, you have a lot of voice. If you're lack of sleep, you don't have, because you don't have a lot of breathing and you don't have a lot of voice as well.
But I'm sure that it's difficult on tour to get enough sleep because you have to move from place to place and it's loud and uncomfortable often.
Yeah. Yeah, and very often, it's too hot, too warm, or too cold, so you never sleep like you're at home, obviously. But we are used to it, so we are able to do a lot of touring with avoiding most of the problems. So there will be always those nights where you don't have a lot of voice, or you will not be feel 100%, because it's a long tour. Like the tour we're gonna do now in the beginning of the year, it's 2 months and a half in between South America, Central America, and North America. So we're gonna be flying a lot. We're gonna be traveled with a tour bus, sleeping in a different bed every night. So it's, of course, it's not gonna be excellent. There's gonna be some nights where you're great and some nights where you whatever you bring it home and that's it. But it is what it is. It's the nature of touring that is not healthy for anybody, because it's not a healthy lifestyle. I love it. It's a great part of our job, and we love to go and see our fans and tour and travel the world. But we also know that you can't be great all every night.
Mm. Do you have some tour essentials that you always have with you? Do you have this bag? What are the like most essential things that you will not leave on tour without?
Beside the obvious thing, like chargers for the phone or stuff like that, normally when we do a long tour, I always have for my suitcase, I have 9 clean changes, like 9 underwear, socks, t-shirts, because 9, it's a good time to find a laundry, with 9 to 10, but I developed 9 in all these years, is perfect because you have time enough to, even if you don't find a laundry right away, you can still hold for a few days, and between the show and everything, and you will be able to survive and then time to find the laundry and, and wash everything. And then I'll bring usually the Nintendo
Mhm.
Switch to play a little bit on the. But I don't play a lot, but a little bit. Maybe a book as well, especially for the traveling. Because once you're on the bus, you have your routine and you don't need that many things, you know. And we always have like we have our double gear. So we have gear in the United States when we tour America and gear in Europe when we tour Europe. So in America we leave everything already there. Like I get my pajamas, my hair dryer, my everything. I leave it there at the warehouse, you know. So when I go, I already have everything. But so there's only the normal things, nothing special, some medicine, some, you know, just for first emergency things, you know, but nothing crazy. Like there's nothing like nothing scaramantic or like that.
Yeah, I've heard that some people, you mentioned that laundry thing, that some people just straight up they buy new clothes from some cheap place and then they just throw them away and keep buying it, so they don't have to worry about where's the laundry and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I don't like to waste stuff like that. I've seen Ben doing it. I've seen Ben having in the rider clean socks and clean underwear every day, play the show and leave them in the dressing room and go away. Even if I can have it, I'd rather not do it. I feel like it would be wasting stuff, you know, which I'm not a big fan of, you know. It's not because not because of the money, but because I don't. It's the principle, you know. I don't like to waste stuff, you know. It can
Mm.
happen that if you have a sock that is a bit broken, if fuck it, you throw it away and you buy a new one. And when you're on tour, you always buy a lot of stuff because especially when we travel in America, being from Europe, obviously you find stuff that you won't find in Europe and maybe it costs less. So you're gonna we always go with an half empty suitcase and come back with a full suitcase. So between the stuff we buy, stuff we get from endorsement, and so it's always like a lot of stuff. You know, you can have more than you need anyway, you know. And
Mm.
fans, they bring you gifts as well. So
Do you have some warm-up routine every night when you perform?
yeah, I'll do a little bit, not too much, because I think if I do too much, I spoil the voice. So I do a little bit of exercise, normal exercise, especially with closed mouth. So I don't have to. I can go high, like the rolling R's and that stuff with the scale, because I think that is good because you push higher and lower without using too much of the real voice, and so some of that, but not too much. Maybe 10 minutes, let's say 15 minutes maybe, but not more than that because it's important to save the voice when you have to sing every night. You know, I know, for example, I know some singer they need to sing a lot before their voice is really warm, like Devin Townsend, for example. He's an amazing singer, and then I know he warms up for like an hour or more because his voice is amazing, but he's very fragile. So he really needs to warm it up a lot. Otherwise, while he sings, he can break easily. He told me that's what he told me. And but I also know something that they smoke before they go on stage, so they never can warm up. You know. So I like to do, and also Christina, we do it together usually, or something similar. We do a little bit, like in 15 minutes before, just to get in the mood and warm up a little bit. Do maybe a couple of push-ups as well to get the adrenaline running a little bit, but not too much because otherwise, if you have to do it every day, for us, it's tiring. So it's better to do a little bit, but not all of it.
How do you prepare for a show that's you maybe had a bad day, it's been long, tiring, or you're not in the mood? How do you prepare yourself on the stage to give everything you have to the people?
Most of the time, it's all about the people, actually. You know, the people is the one that give you the adrenaline, they give you the energy to go out there and perform. But sometimes it happens, some places, maybe not people, it's not that they don't like the show, but it's that they're more of a quiet audience in some countries because the nature of the people there is more quiet than somewhere else, you know. And sometimes you feel in the beginning, you feel, it's going to be a boring night. But in the end, I think we are always able to break this, to make it, to get everybody involved in the show. Maybe it takes longer some nights because people needs to be more uh, dragged into the show. But one thing is that I don't want to be far away from home, sleeping on a bus, living this life to waste one night. You know, I want to be there every night. As to you have to make some fans, you have to conquer some fans, you have to give the people what they came from what they pay for. So we try to be 100% every night. Obviously, it's not always possible. You know, sometimes it'll be 70%, 80%, because you're too tired or people is not responsive. But we always try to get that even between ourselves, our in the band, to get that excitement of playing. Even if it's not a sold out show or it's not, it's still important to don't waste that night. Because you're there traveling the world and you don't want to be there and waste the night. You want to be there to make it count. To have fun, but also get the same energy from the people. It's very important for us to try to always be 100%, but it's not always possible, obviously.
In your upcoming album, Sleepless Empire, how was the vocal recording? Did you find something new from your voice, or did you just do things in the Lacuna style as always?
No, we've been pushing a lot of the rhythmical parts. Like I've done a lot of together with Marco, our bass player, which is the main songwriter. We worked a lot on more rhythmical patterns, so very fast, a lot of words, and also very long screams, longer screams as well. And we tried also a couple of semi-distorted, distorted that had a note as well. So that was the something we never tried before to have a growl, but it's not really a growl. It's more like a note with the growl. What I care about mostly is the fact that you can recognize my voice even when I growl. So I need to hear the singer even when he's growling. Because very often when you growl, and the same problem is also with, for example, power metal voice. When they sing high, a lot of singers they sound the same. It seems you could replace the singer, and it's the same because maybe they go with falsetto and that stuff, and it sounds very, very fake and very similar to each other. And I don't like that. I like when you, even whatever genre you do, you recognize the voice of the singer. There needs to be a little bit of the tone, even in the growl, I think. And that's what my taste, my personal taste. And so we work on that. We work on doing that mix of voice, screaming, growling, and the note parts as well. But the most difficult was the rhythmical and because some of the songs on the record are the heaviest we have ever written, and also some rhythmical parts are quite different than in the past, and some screams have been very long, and we've tried also to put a high and a low scream at the same time. We call it the monster, yeah, to make it sound like something different. And yeah, some stuff, a little bit of experimentation for sure.
Which song are you waiting the most to play live on the upcoming tour?
Probably of the ones we haven't played yet, because we've done a little tour in October in the UK, and we played some of the songs that were already out. So of the one we haven't played, I would say maybe Gravity, which has a cool rhythmical part, maybe Scarecrow. Tomorrow is the first rehearsal we're gonna do for the new cycle. So some songs sometimes you realize only by practicing that how cool they are to be played live, or some songs that you expected to be cool once you actually play them, they're not that cool because maybe you do something a bit more monotonous, and so you were really excited to play this, and then you hear it in the practice and say, I thought it was better. I thought it was more exciting to play. Maybe it's great on the record, but not as great live. Sometimes you only find out once you actually go in the practice room and play the song. But I think, yes, Scarecrow and Gravity are some of the most exciting, but I'm sure there will be more.
Grazie mille. It's been really fun talking to you, and I hope to see you maybe live soon.
Thank you.